Good morning. I hope you're keeping warm on this chilly Tuesday. Thank you for joining us. I'm Olivia Rios, Director of Operations and Programs at the LA Latino Chamber, and we're happy to see many familiar faces. I'm delighted to be here with you on our first webinar for the month of December, and today's topic is Clean Energy Initiatives, brought to you by our partners at SoCalGas. I'd like to welcome Edith Moreno. Her position at SoCalGas is Public Affairs Strategy and Policy Maker. Edith brings over 15 years of experience in the energy and environmental sectors, specializing in climate energy, policy, low carbon fuels, advocacy strategy, and regulatory affairs. Pretty much she helps keep us in line. She currently holds a position in public affairs, strategy and policy manager, where she focuses on strategic stakeholder engagement for clean, renewable hydrogen projects. As we navigate through this apparent climate change, it's important to know the various alternatives in the energy sector that can help us manage our footprint. So we're here to have Edith with us join us this morning. So before we start, I ask that you mute yourself. Please ask questions in the chat box, and feel free to tell us where you're coming from, maybe your name and company name. Before we end our session, Maida Braga from Delta Airlines will be sharing some perks from the airline. Let's get started. Welcome, Edith.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this morning. I'll spend a little bit more time just kind of giving you some more background on just who I am. So born and raised in LA, proud Southeast LA, born and raised in Southgate. And I've been kind of moved around the country for school, and then eventually made my way back to California for grad school. And I lived in San Diego for about 9 years, where I worked for a consulting firm. And then I also, and that's where I actually got my start in the utility space and the energy space specifically. So I started my utility career about 11 years ago at San Diego Gas and Electric. And then I moved over to Southern California Gas Company, which is our sister utility here in LA, where I've been focusing on a number of kind of clean energy transition policy issues for the gas company. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little time talking to you all about, SoCalGas's role in supporting and advancing the clean energy transition, right? What does a traditional fossil fuel company have to do in this space as we're moving to a kind of a net zero future? And it's kind of one of the main reasons why I continue to work for SoCalGas, is kind of continuing to lead the charge and having SoCalGas be a leader in transitioning, a company that has been traditionally delivering fuels that not only are safe and reliable, that are clean, but we're hoping for a future where we'll be able to deliver even cleaner fuels. So I'll start with just kind of, level setting. If SoCalGas is not one of your utility providers, but I doubt that maybe folks that don't live in the LA area do not get a bill from SoCalGas unless you live in an all-electric home. So, we've been in the business for over 150 years. We're really big. I think folks don't realize that we are actually the largest natural gas distribution utility company in North America, and our service territory covers about 24,000 square miles, which goes straight up in, basically half of California into the Central Valley and out to the Mexico border down south. And we have about 21 million customers that we proudly serve today. So earlier I was talking a little bit about, kind of this transition and why this is happening, right? And why is it that SoCalGas needs to transition? And why is it that businesses and folks who are members of the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce need to be paying attention to this kind of sort of thing? Because this change and this push to a cleaner energy future is happening. And so California has set forth, really aggressive climate policies, right? Really ambitious goals of reducing emissions, not only in terms of greenhouse gases, but also reducing emissions from, traditional mobile sources or point sources that are, leading to that smog that we see in the LA basin. So that's criteria air pollutants. And so I won't go through each of these bills, but essentially it just kind of shows the timeline, right? That the legislature has set forth for California to increase the amount of renewable energy and zero carbon resources we have online. And the goal is to get to net zero by 2045. So it's not a very long time from now. That's 20 years from now. So how is it that we're going to get there, right? I think folks are beginning to hear about this push to electrify everything, right? Whether it's all electric homes or whether, we have more battery electric vehicles on the road. But the reality is that we're going to need more than just electrons or clean electricity to meet our climate goals. We're also going to need clean fuels and other kind of ways to manage our carbon emissions. And so, we need cleaner fuels to power aviation, to continue to power the economy, right? That the Port of LA essentially supports for us. The mobility sector, right? The 710 freeway, the 10 East, heavy industry, right? Think of the city of Vernon, think of any other big manufacturing hub in LA, and also power generation, right? The reality is that we won't be able to feasibly or cost effectively transition these sectors to run on just pure electricity. And this is why kind of clean fuels has a role to play to support the decarbonization of these sectors. And I know I work for SoCalGas, right? And I work for a company that provides fuel today. And I just kind of want to make a point that it's not just SoCalGas that is kind of pushing for this increased use of clean fuels, but it's also something that is being recognized at the federal level. And the Department of Energy is really supporting clean fuels, specifically hydrogen. And the state of California actually has been awarded about $1.2 billion from the Department of Energy to facilitate the development of a hydrogen hub. And if folks on the call don't know what the hydrogen hub is, or maybe just kind of on a high level have heard something about it, but essentially this was a proposal or initiative that was introduced by the Department of Energy to develop hydrogen hubs across our country. And so the state of California put together an application to try to win some of these dollars, and that name of that entity is ARCHES. You'll see here at the kind of the lower box here. So that the name of the entity is the Alliance for Renewable Clean Hydrogen Energy Systems, and it is a public-private partnership. So it's a number of projects, private projects throughout the state and some public, kind of collaborating with the state of California. And so we put together a really strong application, and it was really big kind of news for California to be awarded this pot of money to help facilitate and kickstart a hydrogen economy. And hopefully, we'll be able to have more hydrogen production and more clean fuels production online to able to support the decarbonization of a number of these sectors that I just mentioned. I'll talk a little bit here about, our journey, right? It's not that, SoCalGas all of a sudden wanted to jump on the bandwagon and say, hey, we're all in on clean fuels. This is actually that's something that SoCalGas has been pushing for, is striving for over 5 years now. And I actually joined the company in 2018. And since and it's actually one of the main reasons why I decided to come from SDG&E to SoCalGas was the direction that the gas company was taken, right? I'm an environmentalist at heart. My degree's in geology, my master's in environmental science. And so I would get a lot of criticism, from a number of colleagues and even friends being like, but you're an environmentalist, yet you're working for a fossil fuel company. How does that work for you? Does that make you feel a sort of way? And my response to them would be actually no, because I'm, in a space, in a policy, in a regulatory space, advocating and pushing for positions that will help SoCalGas continue to be a leader in, delivering cleaner fuels, right? So we introduced kind of this new mission to be the cleanest, safest, most reliable energy company in America, kind of right around COVID. We released a clean fuels white paper that essentially showed it, modeled multiple scenarios of how is it that we're going to get to our clean energy targets. And it showed that regardless of the scenario, you're still going to need clean fuels to support electric generation and to support industry. And then we were able to get adopted at the California Public Utilities Commission, a standard where we have, we're mandated to deliver 20% renewable fuels to our customers. So today that is biomethane, so it's renewable natural gas. So biomethane is, think of any gas that comes from landfills, from, you know, the wastewater treatment industry, from cows, right, et cetera, et cetera. And so today we have 5% of the fuel that we deliver to our customers today comes from those sources. And the goal is to get to even to up to 20% in the near future. And then kind of a couple of other initiatives that I'll just that I'll continue to spend some time on later on in my presentation. But you know, Angeles Link was a really big milestone for the company, where we proposed, you know, to build a dedicated hydrogen pipeline, right? And then but again, I'll pause there and I won't speak too much about Angeles Link. But again, this timeline just really does emphasize how, you know, SoCalGas is really leaning it in and repositioning itself to support and advance the state's climate goals, and leverage our existing infrastructure as much as we can, and hopefully get authorization to build new infrastructure that would be dedicated to transporting cleaner fuels. So I'll talk a little bit about Angeles Link. This is probably the project that I've been spending most of my time on, exclusively for about the past 3 years at SoCalGas. And so what Angeles Link is SoCalGas's proposal to build a open access clean renewable hydrogen pipeline system. And the key word here is open access. It is, you know, SoCalGas is not a private company. This would be a pipeline that would be open to any producer or anyone who wants to use this hydrogen. And so as long as they meet kind of the requirements and safety, interconnection, et cetera, requirements, they're allowed to use the pipeline. Whereas in a private industry, a private pipeline usually only connects users from A to B. And, you know, there is oversight, there is, you know, safety and regulations, but it's not under kind of public scrutiny. As, you know, SoCalGas is a regulated utility, right? Everything that we do is done under the purview of the California Public Utilities Commission. So I kind of really wanted to emphasize the difference, that this is not a private pipeline, that this would be a public kind of open access pipeline that would, the intention is that it would deliver clean renewable hydrogen from where it would be produced. So think of places where we have renewable energy and we can split water and create hydrogen, and then we would deliver that hydrogen to various end users throughout Central and Southern California. And so why is it that we need, right, this pipeline? And you know, I talked a little bit about the need to support the decarbonization of these sectors, like the ports, right, which are, you know, I would say LA's heart and even California's heart, right? Just think of the amount of goods movement that happens. But with all that goods movement and the economy flowing also comes emissions, right? And so if we have a dedicated hydrogen pipeline that could support these sectors, we could not only improve air quality, but we can also reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and help clean up these traditionally dirtier sectors in the LA basin, and as well as the Central Valley. So where are we in the process? We're nowhere near construction. We received authorization from the CPUC to move forward with the first phase of the project. So the first phase is what we are calling the feasibility stage. And so essentially the commission allowed us to do some studies to figure out whether a pipeline system like this in our state was even feasible. So we received authorization to move forward with these studies in December of 2021. And so we started doing work in 2022. And since then have done a number of work around feasibility, like, you know, where is it that we're going to get the water to produce the hydrogen? You know, is this really a great way to invest our dollars to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in our state? Are there better alternatives, right? Or where is this pipeline even going to go? What the routes would look like? And so we're really close here to wrapping up the first phase of Angeles Link. And so the plan is to complete before the end of the year. So all of this work around Angeles Link, including a job study that we did, will be available to the public. And so it'll be all posted publicly to our website. And then we go back to the CPUC and ask for authorization to move forward with the second phase. But in general, I think if anything you take away from just my conversation with you all about Angeles Link is that we've done a lot of really great work. And I think that our studies really do show that Angeles Link is something that is feasible for California. So I know Angeles Link is kind of like the future, right? But you know, if folks have not had the opportunity to come visit the Hydrogen Innovation Experience in Downey, this is something that's a little bit more tangible. And I know Olivia had an opportunity to visit and check this out. But if folks have not had an opportunity to check that out, I will walk you through just what we have been able to build in Downey. So it's essentially a clean renewable hydrogen microgrid. And so if a microgrid is essentially a system that doesn't have to be interconnected to the main power lines, right? So if the power went down or there was a safety kind of shut off, right, because of high winds or fire threat, then the utility usually has to turn off the transmission lines and the distribution lines to mitigate that risk. But in the case of a microgrid, right, we're not connected to the main grid. And so this would be able to operate and even keep a neighborhood of about 100 homes safely running and operating. So what we have here is a really great synergy between both the electric and kind of clean fuels and battery system that is supporting the resiliency of this neighborhood. But in this case, we only really have one house here because we didn't have the space. So we have solar panels. And so the solar panels are used to power the house in the middle of the day, but then the solar panels are also used to charge up a battery system that we have on site. That renewable electricity is also used to power that electrolyzer. So an electrolyzer is what is used to create hydrogen. So I talked a little bit about how the idea for Angeles Link is to use clean renewable hydrogen that comes from water. So think water, right? Think H2O, 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. And so that electrolyzer essentially just splits that bond, and it requires a lot of energy to split that hydrogen and oxygen bond, and which is why you want to use clean renewable electricity, right? You want to harness the power of the sun to be able to break that bond. Then you put that hydrogen in what we have on site is a hydrogen storage tank. And then we also have a fuel cell. So a fuel cell is kind of like kind of want to describe it like a battery, but it essentially takes hydrogen and it passes it through kind of a stack of plates and then creates and generates electricity. And so then that fuel cell can power the home at night when the battery system runs kind of low on energy, right? Because traditional batteries today, only can last about 4 to 6 hours, right? But then if you have them working together, you'll be able to have a very resilient, uninterrupted source of power. And then we also have a blending system, right? So the appliances that you find in the home today are appliances that all of us probably have in our home today. Just think of a traditional water heater, think of the traditional stove that you got at Lowe's or Home Depot. And so what we are doing here is we are blending 20% hydrogen with the natural gas that's fed into the home. And so that essentially helps lower the amount of fossil fuel or fossil gas from methane or natural gas that's going into your home. Last point, which is really great because we get asked this a lot during the tours, whether there were special appliances, but no, again, these are just appliances that you can just get at home, that you already have at home, or that you can easily just buy today. So if anyone has not had the opportunity to visit the Hydrogen Innovation Experience, I'm sure we're happy to host another group of folks from the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce to kind of check this out and see hydrogen in action, because I think once people see that is really not that big of a footprint. And that both batteries and the solars and the fuel cells and the hydrogen storage can work together. I think it really does kind of open folks' minds about, the importance of having diverse energy sources to continue to power our homes and even power our economy. So I talked about blending, right? And one question that we get when we're at the hydrogen home is like, okay, great, this is cool. When do I get hydrogen blended into the gas infrastructure that then delivers gas into my home? So the answer is not quite yet, right? We have to wait to receive authorization from the CPUC, and it's a kind of a really long time on here, but what we start with is pilots, right? We have to make sure that on a larger scale and bigger parts of the system, that this is safe, and that SoCalGas has checked all of the boxes to make sure that, we're good to go. And this is something that is not new, right? In Hawaii, they've been blending hydrogen with natural gas for many, many years. They're doing this in Europe. They're doing this in Canada. So it's not something that's, SoCalGas is, being the kind of test case, but no, this has been done safely and successfully in other parts of the country and even other parts of the world. So what we have right now is an application before the California Public Utilities Commission to receive approval for 2 blending demonstration projects. We have one in the city of Orange Cove, which is a really small municipality up in the Central Valley, which is almost at the northernmost portion of our service territory. And then we have another blending demonstration pilot at UC Irvine. And the idea is that, once we get authorization, we would start introducing hydrogen blends starting at 5 and go up to 20, and then start collecting kind of like that data and seeing kind of what happens, if anything, happens to the gas system in these pilot projects. And so I think, this is really exciting, right? Because it's a way for us to deliver cleaner fuels to our customers without having to change out any equipment or to do any changes to the infrastructure that we have already invested in. And I think it's one of the many tools that we can pull from, right? That we're going to need blending, we're going to need more biomethane and renewable natural gas, we're going to need batteries, we're going to need solar, right? So this is kind of taking that all of the above approach. So I'm going to pivot into talking about why, right? I know I mentioned in the beginning, SoCalGas is, really leaning into this energy transition, but, we are also very well equipped to support the state and support our customers in achieving our kind of climate goals, right? We're huge, right? I mentioned we're the largest natural gas distribution company in America. We have over 8,000 of us who are, whether they're skilled in engineering, whether they're skilled in like strategy and policy, we have their workforce. And then we also have a very diverse workforce. SoCalGas is very serious that we hire from the communities that we serve. And 73% of the folks that work for SoCalGas are people of color. And actually, I was sharing this with Olivia earlier and today, because she asked whether I predominantly work with men because I'm a Latina that's working in energy. And I told her that, I work on a day-to-day basis with 80% women. And I think that is a stat that is traditionally unheard of, especially in a space like kind of energy, which is kind of predominantly heavy on kind of the male technical engineering side. But I think it's really great that SoCalGas supports women in the energy space, and that we're allowed to go to these events and, talk about all of the really great things that we do. And then I would say that SoCalGas really does put their money where their mouth is. And then on the right side, our infrastructure, right? We've been in the game for over 150 years. We have over 100,000 miles of underground pipelines. And I think people don't realize that, right? Because you can't see it. You just turn on your stove, you turn on your hot water, right? But you don't realize the extensive network that SoCalGas maintains safely and reliably to deliver that fuel that keeps your home warm especially on cold days like today. And so I think, you know, our infrastructure today does deliver that natural gas that we're so reliant on. But I think we can also use our gas system today to increase the amount of cleaner fuels that we're deliver to our customers. And I think leveraging this infrastructure could help California reach our, you know, our clean energy targets a lot more affordably. And then we'll be able to manage some of the risks that would be associated to transitioning to a new energy source. I think this is my last slide here. And you know, this is something that SoCalGas is really proud of, right? I talked about our diverse workforce, right? And the number of people that SoCalGas employs. But this also is a great graphic that shows how much SoCalGas spends on diverse business entities, right? A very significant amount of the money that we give out to contractors goes to diverse firms, right? You see there about $1.02 billion was spent with diverse business entities, right? And almost 90% of that business is in California. And so CalGas continues just kind of to be this leader and has even surpassed the goal that the California Public Utilities Commission has set forth for us. And it's something that, you know, SoCalGas is really proud of. And something that our current CEO, Scott Drury, has been recognized for embodying his commitment to continuing to spend dollars in diverse entities. So I'm done, and I am happy to take questions and talk about, you know, how we can partner to, you know, support the state in transitioning towards a clean energy future.
Well, thank you, Edith, for that information. I know that, number one, I'd like to congratulate you for being a woman in the energy space because, as you mentioned, there's not that many. But I'm happy to know that SoCalGas does believe in women in that space because it's important. You know, it's male dominant, but, you know, there's very talented people just like yourself who has a wealth of knowledge that can educate us here in the community. And, you know, I do have a couple of questions, but I'm going to open it up to folks here on this call because the information you provided is really key. You know, we talk about climate change, we talk about alternative fuels, and how to have a clean community, right, for generations to come. And I think it's really important that, you know, number one, the chamber does create like a trip, you know, field trip out to the SoCalGas Downey facility to see what it's really like, because it's not until you get there that you're able to kind of put all the pieces together. So hopefully we could do something in early January or February. I'll connect with Ann on that. And then secondly, you talked about feasibility studies, right? How many parts of the study is there? You talked about you're through with the first stage. Now you'll be moving into a second. So I guess you're trying to, or SoCalGas is trying to complete its first phase by the end of this year. How many more phases do you need to complete the studies?
That's a great question. Okay. So in the first phase, we had 16 studies. So we did a lot of work that was done in under 2 years. And so that is a feasibility stage. The next phase is what we're calling phase 2. So to kind of simplify this, in the first phase, we were trying to figure out what the realm of possibility for a hydrogen pipeline system would be in Southern California, right? We looked at routes that would go east to Blythe. We looked at routes that went around to the Inland Empire. We looked at routes that went straight down the 5, right? We like literally looked at a number of, I want to call them even just tentacles of potential hydrogen pipeline, right? Okay. And then with that, we also kind of did some engineering. You know, I talked a little bit about, is this cost effective? Talked a little bit, and then we also did work on, you know, do we have the workforce and is our workforce adequately equipped and trained to support this energy transition? So those are the number of studies that we did in the first phase. Okay. In the second phase, assuming we get the approval from the California Public Utilities Commission, is, okay, you identified this world of possibility, right? So now tell me, SoCalGas, what is possible? Like, what is the preferred route? Like, where is it that you ultimately would like to build this pipeline? So the way I kind of describe it is, you're just kind of narrowing down your options. It's kind of like when you're brainstorming at work and you're just kind of putting everything on the board, and then you start narrowing things down. It's the same process that we're following with Angelus Link. And then the other thing that I failed to mention that is pretty unique for a large infrastructure project is our stakeholder engagement process. And so in the first phase, we put together 2 advisory groups, planning advisory group, which is comprised of, industry folks, regulators, even folks who have been traditionally our biggest opponents. So think of like the Sierra Clubs, you think of the EJ community, like Communities for Better Environment. We have the Ports of LA on here. We have the CPUC on this. And then we also have another group that is composed of community-based organizations. So think of smaller organizations that are traditionally not as involved in energy issues because they're doing like health stuff, or they're doing like low income, outreach, right? And it's energy is not kind of part of the things that they do to serve kind of their constituents or community. And so we put together both of these groups. And so that was really unique because we were doing all these studies and then sharing all this information with both of these groups for their feedback and their input. So they were informed every step of the way. So this is a very transparent process. And so the idea is that we are going to continue the stakeholder engagement process in phase 2. So I know I talked about all of these studies, and then we're going to kind of focus down the number of studies that we do. But the stakeholder engagement portion of Angelus Link is not gonna ramp down. It's actually probably gonna increase. So you'll be hearing more from SoCalGas, depending on what the ultimate routes SoCalGas wants to select. And then I see Michelle, Dr. Yanis. Hi, nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us. Yes, we are planning to put together community benefits agreement. So it is a requirement that the Department of Energy has for all of these projects that are part of the hydrogen hub. So SoCalGas will, once we have a project selected, we will be putting together community benefits plans together.
Okay, and where would we be able to find those? On SoCalGas website? Is the CPUC sending something out to community organizations such as ours, kind of a heads up where to find info? Or
yeah, no, so it'll be mostly on SoCalGas.
Okay.
So the idea is we get authorization to proceed with the second phase. But while we're waiting, SoCalGas is intending to do more kind of targeted engagement in the communities. And so you will be hearing from us and we're working on what that communication strategy would look like, whether it's like newsprint, whether it's a news, ad on the radio, et cetera, but we're not going to make it difficult for stakeholders to know about how is it that they can get involved with Angelus Link.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. You have this facility in Downey. You talk about communications, whether it's print, media, or otherwise. I mean, I'm not in communications, that's not my space. However, I think a tour to really understand how hydrogen overall will affect the future is really key. So, like I mentioned, we'll probably be hosting something in the near future with our members. But I'd like to ask another question because there's a few things that popped up. Will the pipeline be open to other gas companies? You give here a schematic of where you're currently looking at, and it's 1/3 of the state. If we're the largest provider of gas, those hydrogen links, the Tanacos, will they be reaching out to other companies like PG&E or others to kind of branch out and make it larger than just statewide?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I can tell you that today, right, our natural gas system connects to PG&E's gas system. So our gas system is interconnected. I
Mhm.
probably can't speak to what that would look like with a hydrogen pipeline, but I do know PG&E is also very much involved in transitioning their fuel to cleaner fuels, and they're also doing a lot of hydrogen work as well.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if they have any dedicated hydrogen infrastructure plans or projects
Mhm.
today. But the idea is for Angeles Link is we would connect the producers. So, and I know that's a very broad term. So we're thinking about the people or the entities and the companies who are making the hydrogen, very similar to kind of natural gas today. I know most of our natural gas comes from out of state, but we do have natural gas production in state. And so those producers, it's actually typically a byproduct of oil and gas
Mhm.
extraction. And so those producers connect into our system and inject their natural gas today. So the idea with Angeles Link is very similar, where we have the hydrogen producers. So think of, let's say, let's take, for example, the Central Valley. The Central Valley is probably a really prime and perfect place where I could see the hydrogen economy boom in Central Valley because they have abundant land. And the idea is that we would have companies, third-party entities, right, private companies who are making hydrogen with dedicated solar on site. And then they'll be able to tap into hopefully Angeles Link or a hydrogen pipeline. And then that hydrogen goes into our pipeline, and then someone eventually buys that hydrogen downstream, right? And so the hydrogen would be then used like at the Port of LA or at a hydrogen fueling infrastructure a station. So I hope that helps, right? That it's not just SoCalGas is building a pipeline to nowhere. The idea is to engineer and build a hydrogen pipeline system that makes sense, that we're not just drawing lines on the map, that we're really looking at clusters where hydrogen production could occur in the state and then connecting that to where the demand is in California.
Yeah, so a personal experience, I had a friend who was driving, and no plug here, what is it? A Hyundai
Nexo?
vehicle. I don't remember the model, but it was a Hyundai vehicle that was hydrogen used. So just, I mean, it was like 300 miles between fueling. So, just like some of the Teslas, as long as you don't turn on the air, the radio, and all the other stuff to drain your battery, hydrogen can kind of last a couple hundred miles, but it wasn't feasible for families who want to use alternative fuels to get around town unless
Mhm.
you're
It's
of
a
a
plan.
certain age. Yeah, unless you're a certain age and your travel is very minimum. But for those of us who commute, I have a home in the desert, and so for me to come to LA, it's at least 100 miles each direction. So
Yeah.
I just coming and doing things around town. There's only like one fueling station in LA. The next one's in Riverside County. So it's not really feasible for someone like myself, right? But if I just go around town and if it's my mom driving, I think the fuel can last her a couple couple of days or a couple of weeks. But having said that, there's still going to be initiatives on the automotive side to continue with incentives, rebates, and all that. Will it be, continue to be through the automotive industry, or would it be something that SoCalGas can also pitch in?
It would be primarily through the automotive industry. And I actually have a hydrogen car. I have that Hyundai, the little SUV, I have a
Uh-huh.
Hyundai Nexo. But I'm lucky that I live near a hydrogen fueling station and have been able to make it work for me.
Hmm.
And I can get it to Palm Springs and back, no problem, Olivia. Just
Oh, cool.
no
Well,
problem.
thank you. So let me address some of the questions that are on the chat. There's a couple of self intros, and then Ronnie asked, can they get copy of the PowerPoint? Can we share this with our external
Yes, you
folks
can.
or with the group? Okay, so we'll share that. And then let me see. Will this program continue with this administration? Well, that's, I don't even know where to start on that
I
one.
know. I can start. I see
Okay.
the gist here.
Hmm.
I'll start with Trump, who traditionally is, a naysayer and anti-climate change.
Mhm.
president. And the Biden administration did, pumped a lot of money for clean energy projects, right? And even for incentives, which was huge, right? And so I know I talked a little bit about the hydrogen hubs and, California getting this money. We're a blue state, but I will say that the bill that introduced the money for, the Inflation Reduction Act was something that was approved not just by Democrats, it was actually overwhelmingly supported by Republicans as well. So it is a bipartisan initiative and effort. And
Mhm.
then the money that is going to the hydrogen hubs, most of the states that are getting this money are red states. So I just personally don't think it would be politically popular for SoCalGas to come in and take away money that is going to be supporting jobs and local economies and industry. Again, that's just my opinion. I have no idea what he would eventually do, but I think it would just be really politically unpopular, especially when, his House and his Senate, right, were supportive of this, and it wasn't a largely blue or largely red initiative.
Mhm.
This is a good thing. And like,
Yeah,
I
and
really hope he
topics like
recognizes
this
that.
shouldn't, should be bipartisan, right? At
Yeah.
the end of the day, we really need to move forward as a country, regardless of party. I've seen hydrogen fueling stations at the Ontario airport. So little by little, you'll be getting energy or hydrogen stations throughout, but you have to really map them out. There is an app, right? Like a phone app where you can
Mhm.
check to see where they're at. Okay. And then let me see, I had a couple other questions. The pipeline infrastructure, I guess once the feasibility studies and CPUC can, move forward, then you'll be able to share those on your site. Now, that's where developers for future housing initiatives can go to and find these locations, correct?
Yeah, you'll be able to see, all of this information is going to be public really, really soon. So you'll be able
Okay.
to see the engineering studies, the routes, right? Yeah.
So on the clear fuel, oh, the clean fuel white papers, those
Yeah.
are available now. Can
Yes, that is available now. And I'm
okay.
happy to drop it in the chat. Actually, I
All
should
right,
stop
perfect.
my
And
screen.
then one key about hydrogen that you could use the existing gas infrastructure when there is a transition, correct?
Correct. At certain blends. So what I was talking about, what we have in Downey, it
Mhm.
it's only, the idea is only to go to 20, up to 20%. And the reason is because, right, the natural gas system was engineered and designed with methane in mind, so natural gas. And
Mhm.
so hydrogen has been shown to have some integrity problems with it, will basically causes some integrity problems with the pipeline. So you can get the pipeline to like crack and or embrittle. And so we obviously do not want that, right? We want to make sure that the pipeline is like a solid and that there's nothing inside that is potentially like corroding the pipeline. And so that's just some research that has been shown today that if you increase at certain amounts of, you go beyond a certain hydrogen content, and then, it can start messing up the pipeline. But the idea with Angeles Link is that it would be brand new, state of the art, right? Hydrogen
Mhm.
pipeline that would be designed and engineered with hydrogen in mind. And hydrogen pipelines do exist today. It's not something that we don't have in the ground today. We have about 1,600 miles of hydrogen pipeline. We just kind of don't hear about it because they're private pipelines that largely serve today the kind of petrochemical industry.
Okay. And a few more questions. Can you please share the job study? The
The
work.
job study will be available very soon. It'll be available in that large package of feasibility studies before the end of the year. So Olivia, I'll make sure that once all of that stuff is published, I can send you a note and be like, here's a link to everything. And then
All right, perfect.
please feel free to share it with your members. But I think that the job study is a really really unique one because it talks about not only the significant amount of construction jobs where temporary, but it also talks about the number of permanent jobs that would be available. And I know Dr. Yanez is interested in this because we've been talking about how is it that we're going to be partnering with the community colleges to make sure that we have folks that are trained in hydrogen, right? Right. We want folks who not only know how to work on kind of batteries and electrical components, but also understand like hydrogen pipeline systems and how to, weld hydrogen pipelines versus a traditional natural gas pipeline.
Yeah, and I know there's a couple of community colleges that have specialized or teamed up with certain corporations or companies to really get the word out about this new form of energy. I know that Rio Hondo has partnered up with Tesla to produce, the workforce or some of the workforce, so they're ready to learn about what the vehicles are like, so that way they have jobs at the end. And I think this is really key, not only for SoCalGas, but all the other energy organizations that, have alternative fuels to really create that workforce, because it's the only way that we can get up and running. And not only that, it really helps expedite some of these projects. No workforce is like you're stagnant. We have all this great things, but we can't move anywhere. We can't move forward. We don't have the workforce.
I can't take my car to any mechanic anymore. I have to go to the dealer, and I don't like that.
Yeah, so someone's gonna do an auto shop just on hydrogen, right?
I hope so. That would be really cool when my uncle or my tia, whoever it is, like can fix my car.
So I guess on that note, I want to thank you for your time. Now I'd like to introduce Maida Braga, account executive at Delta Airlines, to bring us some information on what the airline is doing for the holidays, as well as some of the perks.
Hello, Olivia. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Great presentation about all sustainability and the efforts we are doing to create a better planet. So on that note, I would also like to share some of the initiatives that we are doing at Delta Airline in that sense. So far, we don't have any airplane that use hydrogen as fuel, but there are researches and they're testing on that sense. So hopefully will be available soon. But right now we do have alternatives for cleaner fuel that we can use, and that's called sustainable aviation fuel. So sustainable aviation fuel is basically made of organic materials, trash. It already exists, it's available. And one of the beauties is that we don't need to make any change in the aircraft that already exist to be able to fly with sustainable aviation fuel. And we don't need to make any change in the operations, anything. So as long as there is enough SAF to fuel our planes, that can be used. But the big problem today is that there is not enough production for the airlines. So just an example, if we Delta were to purchase all the sustainable aviation fuel that exists in the world, we only be able to have 2% of our operation covered with that fuel. So one of the efforts that we're doing is to attract investments in the entire industry with our clients, to give a sign for the production companies, for the government, that there is a need and there is a desire to use alternative fuels, so we can use that sign to improve the demand. So at Delta, we have a program that we call Sustainable Aviation Fuel Corporation, where different companies invest on us. The investments, they start at $5,000 and then can be up to amount that is available for your company. So with that money, we can invest on the sustainable aviation fuel, pay the greener fee, and also help those companies to promote, to produce more sustainable aviation fuel. If you are interested to that, let's have a chat. I will share my contact information, and if you want to learn more about the initiatives we're doing on that environment, I'm happy to chat. We also have a sustainable consulting team that manages different aspects of the business, not just fuel, but in terms of how to make our operations more green, how to reduce the carbon footprint of our company, not just in the fuel aspect, but also in the land operations, in the onboard servicing, because we cover like so much areas. So if you're interested on that, let's have a chat. Here it's my contact details, and so Edith Segura from Aeromexico. and we're here to help you with any travel needs that you have. It was a pleasure to participate in this webinar. Hope you learned a little bit more about your company. We're proud sponsors of the LA Latino Chamber of Commerce and hope to continue the partnership and supporting your business. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you,
Aida, for the
Maida, for
opportunity.
sharing some of the initiatives that Delta is making as a sponsor of the chamber. We're truly grateful. And this is a plug. So Delta is the official airline of the LA Latino Chamber and has been since 2020. So we're proud users of the airline as well as promoting, because we firmly believe that partnerships are key to the success, and it's a win-win for both of us. So on that note, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Any questions about anything, you can reach me at 213-422-9019 or olivia@lalcc.org. On behalf of our leadership, board members, corporate advisory board members, and our membership, we want to thank you for joining us today. Happy holidays. Bye-bye for now.